The alarm clock screamed at 4:30 a.m., its shrill voice cutting through the darkness of the small bedroom like a knife. Sarah Mitchell's hand shot out from under the thin blanket, fumbling across the nightstand until her fingers found the off button. Silence returned to the room, but sleep did not. It never did anymore. She lay there for exactly 30 seconds, her daily luxury, staring at the water-stained ceiling of their tiny apartment. In the dim light filtering through the worn curtains, she could make out the familiar patterns of discoloration, shapes she'd memorized over countless sleepless nights. That one looked like a butterfly. That one a mountain. That one, if she squinted, resembled her son's profile. Daniel. Her reason for everything. With a groan that spoke of bone-deep exhaustion, Sarah forced herself to sit up. Her body protested, her back aching from yesterday's double shift at the diner, her feet still tender from standing for 16 hours straight. At 38, she felt twice that age. But there was no time for self-pity. There was never time for anything except work. She moved through her morning routine in the dark, not wanting to turn on the light and add even a few cents to the electric bill. Every penny counted. Every single one. Cold water on her face from the bathroom sink, hot water cost money to heat. A quick brush of her teeth. Hair pulled back into a practical ponytail. The same uniform she'd worn yesterday, hanging on the back of the bathroom door, still smelling faintly of grease and coffee. Before leaving, Sarah paused at Daniel's bedroom door. It was slightly ajar, as always. She pushed it open silently and stepped inside, her eyes adjusting to the even deeper darkness of his room. There he was. Her son. Her entire world. Daniel slept sprawled across his twin bed, one arm hanging off the edge, his 14-year-old face peaceful in sleep. He'd grown so much over the past year, his legs now hung off the end of the bed that had seemed so big when they'd bought it at a thrift store 5 years ago. His shoulders had broadened. His voice had deepened. He was becoming a man, and she was missing it, watching it happen in stolen moments like this one. Sarah's heart clenched painfully in her chest. When had he gotten so tall? When had those childish features sharpened into the handsome face she saw now? She'd been there, of course, living in the same small apartment, but she'd been so busy working, so consumed with survival, that she'd somehow missed the transformation happening right in front of her. She wanted to bend down and kiss his forehead like she had when he was small, but she was afraid of waking him. He needed his sleep. School started in 3 hours, and he had a math test today. He'd mentioned it last week during one of their brief exchanges in the morning before she left for work. Or had that been 2 weeks ago? Sarah couldn't remember. The days blurred together into an endless cycle of work and exhaustion. "I love you, baby," she whispered into the darkness, so quietly that the words barely stirred the air. "Everything I do is for you. I hope you know that." Daniel didn't stir. Sarah pulled his door closed to just a crack, the way he liked it, and left the apartment as silently as a ghost, locking the door behind her with a soft click. The bus to her first job was mostly empty at this hour, populated only by other people like her, the working poor, the exhausted, the ones who kept the city running while most people slept. Sarah found a seat near the back and leaned her head against the cool window, watching the dark streets slide past. She'd taken the first job, breakfast and lunch shift at Morton's Diner, 6 years ago, right after the divorce. Back then, it had seemed temporary, just a way to keep food on the table until she could find something better, something with regular hours and benefits. But better had never materialized. Instead, 2 years ago, she'd added a second job, evening shift at a grocery store, stocking shelves and running register. Between the 2 jobs, she managed to keep their small apartment, keep Daniel fed and clothed, and even save a little bit. Not much. Never enough. But a little. The diner was already bustling when she arrived, even though it was barely 5 a.m. Tom, the owner, nodded at her from behind the counter. "Morning, Sarah. Got a full house today." Construction crew came in early. "On it," Sarah said, tying her apron around her waist and grabbing her order pad. She slipped seamlessly into the rhythm of work, taking orders, pouring coffee, delivering plates of eggs and bacon and pancakes, refilling coffee cups, clearing tables. Her feet hurt and her back ached, but her smile never wavered. Tips depended on that smile. "You're an angel, sweetheart," one of the construction workers said, slipping her an extra $5 with his payment. "Best service in the city." "Thank you, sir." "You have a wonderful day." The morning rush blurred into the lunch rush. Sarah's feet moved automatically. Her hands worked without conscious thought. She'd done this so many times that her body knew the routine even when her mind wandered. And it did wander. To Daniel. He'd be at school now, sitting in his classes. Was he paying attention? Did he understand the math they were teaching him? She'd tried to help him with his homework a few months ago, but she'd been so tired that the numbers had swum before her eyes, and she'd ended up making him more confused. He gently told her it was okay. He could figure it out himself. The patience in his 14-year-old voice had made her want to cry. He was such a good boy. Never complained. Never asked for things he knew they couldn't afford. Got himself up for school, made his own breakfast, did his homework, kept their small apartment reasonably clean. He'd had to grow up too fast, become too independent too young. And it was her fault. No. Sarah shook her head sharply, nearly spilling the coffee she was pouring. It wasn't her fault. It was circumstance. It was life. It was doing the best she could with what she had. But was her best good enough? "Sarah? You okay?" Tom's voice broke through her thoughts. "Fine, just tired." "Sorry. Take your break. You've been on your feet for 7 hours straight." Sarah glanced at the clock. It was already past noon. "I'm okay." That wasn't a suggestion. 15 minutes. Go sit down before you collapse. She retreated to the small break room and sank into a plastic chair, her body sighing with relief. 15 minutes. What a luxury. She pulled out her phone, an old model, years out of date, but it worked, and saw a text message from Daniel, sent 3 hours ago. "Mom, don't forget I have basketball practice after school. I'll be home by 6. Love you." Basketball practice. She'd forgotten he'd joined the team this year. When had that happened? She typed back quickly, "Have fun, honey. There's leftover pasta in the fridge for dinner. I'll be home late. Love you so much." Late. She was always home late. By the time she finished her shift at the grocery store at 10 p.m. and took the bus home, Daniel would already be asleep most nights. She'd peek into his room, see him sprawled across his bed, and feel that familiar ache in her chest, love and guilt and exhaustion mixing into something that felt like drowning. When had she last had a real conversation with him? Not just quick exchanges about schedules and meals, but a real conversation? When had she last asked him about his day, his friends, his dreams? She couldn't remember. Sarah's 15 minutes ended too quickly. She returned to the floor, returned to the endless cycle of orders and smiles and aching feet. When her shift at the diner finally ended at 3 p.m., she had exactly 45 minutes to get across town to the grocery store for her evening shift. She made it with 3 minutes to spare. "Sarah, good, you're here," her manager, Marcus, said. "We got a huge delivery today. Gonna need you in the back unloading and organizing. Heavy lifting." Perfect. Exactly what her exhausted body needed. But she smiled. No problem. The evening shift was different from the morning, slower in some ways, more chaotic in others. Customers who came in after work, tired and irritable. Teenagers buying junk food. Elderly people carefully counting change for their purchases, and Sarah always made sure their totals came out just right, even if she had to spot them a few cents from her own pocket. At 7 p.m., during a brief lull, Sarah's phone buzzed. A text from Daniel, "Mom, when are you coming home?" Her heart clenched. He never asked that. He knew her schedule. He knew she worked late. The fact that he was asking meant he needed something, wanted something, and she wasn't there. Probably around 10:30, "Honey, is everything okay? Do you need something?" The 3 dots appeared, indicating he was typing. They disappeared. Appeared again. Disappeared. Finally, "No, it's fine. Just wanted to know. Love you." "Love you too, baby." So much. But it wasn't fine. She knew it wasn't fine. Something was wrong, and she wasn't there to fix it, and she wouldn't be there until he was asleep. The rest of her shift dragged by with agonizing slowness. Every time Sarah checked the clock, only minutes had passed when it felt like hours. Her mind kept circling back to Daniel's text, to that hesitation before he said everything was fine. Finally, mercifully, 10 p.m. arrived. Sarah clocked out, said goodnight to Marcus, and practically ran to the bus stop. The bus seemed to hit every red light, make every stop, move at a glacial pace. By the time she walked through the door of their apartment, it was 10:45 p.m. The apartment was dark except for a light on in the kitchen. Sarah's heart leaped. Was Daniel still awake? She found him at the small kitchen table, his math textbook open in front of him, his head propped on one hand. He looked up when she entered, and even through her exhaustion, Sarah could see the redness around his eyes. He'd been crying. Daniel? Baby, what's wrong? He closed the textbook quickly. Nothing, Mom. I'm fine. You look exhausted. You should go to bed. Don't do that. Don't pretend everything's okay when it's not. Sarah pulled out the chair next to him and sat down, ignoring her body's screaming protests. Talk to me. Please. For a long moment, Daniel said nothing. Then, in a voice so small it broke her heart, I failed my math test today. Oh, honey. I studied, I really did. But I didn't understand some of the problems, and I couldn't figure them out, and his voice cracked. I'm sorry, Mom. I know you work so hard so I can have a good life and go to a good school, and I'm letting you down. No. Sarah reached out and took his hand, her own rough and calloused from work. No, baby, you're not letting me down. Not even a little bit. But the test. It's one test. One test doesn't define you. And you know what? It's okay to struggle sometimes. It's okay to not understand everything the first time. But I asked you to help me study last week, and you were too tired, and I should have figured it out myself. The guilt hit Sarah like a physical blow. He'd asked for help. Her son had asked for her help with his schoolwork, and she'd been too exhausted to give it. She'd failed him. I'm so sorry, she whispered, tears stinging her eyes. Daniel, I'm so sorry I wasn't there when you needed me. It's not your fault, Mom. You work so hard. I know you do. He looked down at their joined hands. I just wish sometimes. I wish you didn't have to work so much. I wish we could just, I don't know, hang out sometimes. Like we used to. When had they stopped? Sarah tried to remember the last time they'd done something together, just the two of them, something that wasn't rushed or squeezed between her work shifts. She couldn't. We will, she promised, squeezing his hand. Things will get better. I'm saving money, and soon we'll be able to. I don't care about money, Mom. Daniel's voice was stronger now, more urgent. I don't need new things or a bigger apartment or anything like that. I just want you. I want my mom. The words pierced straight through Sarah's heart. She pulled Daniel into a hug, and he came willingly, this boy who was becoming a man but was still her baby. She felt his shoulders shake with silent sobs, and her own tears fell freely into his hair. I'm sorry, she kept whispering. I'm so sorry. I'm trying so hard, baby. I'm trying to give you everything. I know, he said against her shoulder. I know you are. I love you, Mom. I love you too. More than anything in this world. They stayed like that for a long time, holding each other in the dimly lit kitchen of their tiny apartment. Eventually, Sarah pulled back and wiped the tears from Daniel's face with her thumbs. This weekend, she said firmly. This weekend, I'm going to call in sick to both jobs. We're going to spend the whole day together, just you and me. We'll do whatever you want. Daniel's face lit up with hope, then fell. Mom, you can't call in sick. You need the money. I need you more. We're doing this, okay? It's decided. Okay. A small smile appeared on his face, the first genuine smile she'd seen from him in weeks. Maybe months. Okay, that sounds really good. Now go to bed. It's late, and you have school tomorrow. You should sleep too, Mom. You look exhausted. I will. I just need to wind down a little first. After Daniel had brushed his teeth and retreated to his bedroom, Sarah sat alone at the kitchen table, her head in her hands. The enormity of what she was missing crashed over her in waves. She was missing her son's childhood. She was missing basketball games and school events and lazy weekend mornings. She was missing him. And for what? So they could live in this cramped apartment? So they could have just enough to get by? She worked herself to the bone, sacrificing everything, and they still had nothing. No savings to speak of. No security. No future beyond the next paycheck. There had to be a better way. There had to be. But if there was, Sarah had no idea what it was. True to her word, Sarah called in sick to both jobs that Saturday. Tom at the diner was understanding. She'd never called in sick in 6 years, and he told her to take the time she needed. Marcus at the grocery store was less sympathetic, warning her that if it happened again, he'd have to write her up. Sarah accepted it. It was worth it. She slept until almost 9 a.m., a luxury that felt almost sinful, and woke to the sound of movement in the kitchen. Daniel was making breakfast, she realized. Scrambled eggs and toast, the smell wafting into her bedroom. "Good morning," she said, appearing in the kitchen doorway. "This is a nice surprise." "Morning, Mom. I figured since you actually get to sleep in for once, you shouldn't have to cook." He smiled at her, and God, when had he gotten so grown up? "It's not fancy, but it's perfect." "Thank you, honey." They ate breakfast together at the kitchen table, and it felt surreal. Normal families did this every day, Sarah supposed. They sat together and ate and talked. When had it become such a rarity for them? "So," Sarah said, pushing her empty plate aside. "What do you want to do today?" "Anything you want, it's your choice." Daniel thought for a moment. Can we just go to the park? Maybe walk around, get ice cream if the truck is there?" "Nothing big. Just hang out." Something so simple. Something that would cost almost nothing. And it was all her son wanted. That sounds absolutely perfect. They spent the day exactly as Daniel had suggested. They walked through the city park, talking about everything and nothing. Daniel told her about school, about his friends, about the basketball team, and how nervous he'd been during tryouts. Sarah told him stories from the diner, making him laugh with impressions of her regular customers. They got ice cream from a truck, chocolate for him, vanilla for her, and sat on a bench watching people go by. For those few hours, Sarah wasn't an exhausted worker bee. She was just a mom, spending time with her son. And it was the best day she'd had in years. On the bus ride home, Daniel leaned against her shoulder. "Thanks, Mom. This was really great. We should do it more often." "Yeah," he said softly. "We should." But they both knew they wouldn't. On Monday, Sarah would return to her brutal schedule, and these stolen moments would become precious memories again. That night, after Daniel had gone to bed, Sarah sat at the kitchen table with a pen and paper, doing calculations. If she could just save a little more each month, maybe she could cut back her hours. Maybe she could work just one job instead of 2. Maybe she could be there for her son more. But the numbers didn't lie. Even working 2 jobs, they barely made ends meet. Cutting back would mean risking everything, their apartment, their stability, Daniel's ability to stay in his school. She was trapped in a cycle she couldn't break. Unless an idea began to form in Sarah's tired mind. A crazy idea. A desperate idea. Daniel's birthday was coming up in 8 months. He'd be 15. If she saved every extra penny, every tip, every bit of overtime pay, maybe, just maybe, she could give him something. An idea began to form in Sarah's tired mind. A crazy idea. A desperate idea. Daniel's birthday was coming up in 8 months. He'd be 15. If she saved every extra penny, every tip, every bit of overtime pay, maybe, just maybe, she could give him something really special. Something that would show him how much she loved him, how much he meant to her. Something to make up for all the time she couldn't be there. What did teenage boys want? A new video game system? A bike? She had no idea. She'd been so absent from his life that she didn't even know what he was interested in anymore. She'd figure it out. She'd pay attention. She'd save every penny she could. And on his 15th birthday, she'd give Daniel something that would make him understand. Everything she did, every hour she worked, every sacrifice she made, it was all for him. Because she loved him more than life itself. The months that followed were even harder than before. Sarah took every extra shift offered to her, every opportunity for overtime. When Tom asked if she could cover for another waitress who'd quit, taking on additional hours, Sarah said yes, even though her body screamed in protest. When Marcus offered her Sunday shifts at premium pay, she took those too. She saw Daniel even less than before. Their morning moments disappeared as Sarah began leaving for work even earlier. Their evening conversations vanished as she came home later and later. Some days, she didn't see him at all. He'd be asleep when she left, at school or practice when she had her brief afternoon break, and asleep again when she returned home at night. But she was saving money. Every tip went into the jar she kept hidden in her closet. Every bit of extra pay was deposited into a separate savings account she'd opened. She watched the total grow slowly, painfully slowly, but it grew. $500. Then $700. Then $1,000. Sarah researched gifts obsessively during her breaks and on the bus rides between jobs. She listened carefully during her brief interactions with Daniel, trying to pick up clues about what he might want. He'd mentioned once that some kids at school had computers. He'd mentioned being interested in photography. He'd mentioned wanting to learn guitar. A laptop. That's what she'd get him. A good laptop, the kind that would last him through high school and into college. He could use it for school, for his hobbies, for whatever he wanted. It was practical, but also exciting. It was perfect. The laptops she looked at cost around $1,200 for a decent one. She could do that. She would do that. As Daniel's birthday approached March 15th, a date carved into her heart, Sarah pushed herself even harder. She took extra shifts, worked through her breaks, survived on coffee and determination. Her body protested constantly now. Her feet hurt so badly some days that she could barely walk. Her back sent shooting pains up her spine with every movement. She developed a persistent cough that wouldn't go away. But the number in her savings account grew. $1,100. $1,150. $1,200. She'd done it. She actually had enough. 2 weeks before Daniel's birthday, Sarah went to the electronics store on her one day off. She walked through the aisles, overwhelmed by the choices, until a young salesman approached her. "Can I help you find something, ma'am? I need a laptop. For my son. He's turning 15. It needs to be good, something that will last him." The salesman smiled. "I think I have just the thing." He showed her several options, explaining specifications that Sarah barely understood. Finally, they settled on one, a sleek silver laptop with a large screen and good reviews. It cost $1,249 with tax. Sarah hesitated. It was more than she'd saved. But it was the best one, the one the salesman assured her would last for years. "I'll take it," she said, pulling out her savings account debit card. She had the laptop wrapped in bright blue paper, Daniel's favorite color, and hid it in the back of her closet. Every time she looked at it over the next 2 weeks, she felt a surge of pride and excitement. This was going to make everything worth it. When Daniel opened this gift, he'd understand. He'd know how much she loved him. Finally, March 15th arrived. Sarah had planned carefully. She'd requested the day off from both jobs weeks in advance, the first full day she'd taken off in over a year. She'd bought ingredients for Daniel's favorite meal, spaghetti and meatballs with garlic bread. She'd even splurged on a small cake from the bakery. She woke early out of habit, despite having nowhere to be. It was 6 a.m., still dark outside. She crept to Daniel's room, the wrapped laptop in her arms, her heart full of anticipation. But when she opened his door, his bed was empty. Confused, Sarah walked through the small apartment. Daniel wasn't in the bathroom. He wasn't in the kitchen. He wasn't anywhere. On the kitchen table, she found a note in his handwriting. "Mom, gone to school early for a group project. Didn't want to wake you since you finally have a day off. See you this afternoon. Love you. D." Sarah's heart sank. It was his birthday, and he'd gone to school. He hadn't even mentioned it was his birthday. Did he even remember? She looked at the clock. 6:15 a.m. School didn't start until 8 o'clock. If there really was a group project, Daniel wouldn't need to be there for at least another hour and a half. Something felt wrong. Sarah pulled out her phone and called Daniel's cell. It rang 4 times, then went to voicemail. Hi, honey. It's Mom. Just wanted to say good morning and that I love you. Call me when you get a chance. She tried not to worry. He was probably already with his friends, working on whatever this group project was. His phone was probably in his backpack where he couldn't hear it. But the unease wouldn't go away. Sarah busied herself preparing for the birthday dinner. She'd make the sauce from scratch, the way Daniel liked it. She'd set the table with their best dishes. She'd make this birthday special, make up for all the ones she'd missed. Except she realized with a jolt of guilt, she hadn't missed his birthdays. She'd been there for all of them. But had she really been present? Or had she been so exhausted, so consumed with work, that she'd gone through the motions without really being there? She tried to remember last year. Daniel's 14th birthday. What had they done? The memory came slowly, painfully. She'd worked a double shift at the diner that day, someone had called in sick, and Tom had desperately needed her. She'd come home at 10 p.m. with a grocery store cake and a $20 bill, told Daniel to buy himself something he wanted. He'd smiled and thanked her and told her it was fine, he understood. The year before that? Another work day. Another exhausted attempt at celebration late at night. Another, sorry, honey, things are just busy right now. And the year before that? Sarah couldn't remember. They all blurred together into a montage of missed moments and broken promises. When had she last celebrated his birthday properly? When had she last been truly present for it? The answer hit her like a punch to the gut, when he was 10. Before the divorce became final. Before she had to take on 2 jobs just to survive. Before everything fell apart. 5 years. She'd been essentially absent for 5 years of birthdays. And Daniel had never complained. Not once. He'd smiled and said it was fine and told her not to worry. Her sweet, patient, understanding son who'd grown up too fast and asked for too little. At 3 p.m., Sarah heard the front door open. She rushed out of the kitchen, a huge smile on her face. Happy birthday, she called out. Daniel froze in the doorway, his backpack slung over one shoulder. For a moment, he just stared at her, his expression unreadable. You're home, he said finally. Of course I'm home. It's your birthday, honey. I took the whole day off. Sarah moved closer, wanting to hug him, but something in his posture stopped her. How was school? How was the group project? Fine. It was fine. Well, I have a surprise for you. I've been cooking all day, spaghetti and meatballs, your favorite. And I got a cake, and she couldn't contain her excitement anymore. And I have a present for you. A really special one. Mom, I know I haven't been around as much as I should. I know the last few years have been hard. But I've been saving, working extra shifts, and I got you something that I think you're really going to love. Mom, you didn't have to. I wanted to. Let me go get it. Sarah rushed to her bedroom and emerged with the wrapped laptop, holding it out to Daniel like an offering. Open it, she urged. Daniel took the package slowly, his face still unreadable. He set it on the couch and carefully peeled back the wrapping paper. When he saw what was inside, he went very still. It's a laptop, Sarah said unnecessarily, her words tumbling out in her excitement. A really good one. The man at the store said it would last you through high school and college. You can use it for school, for photography, for whatever you want. I know you mentioned being interested in computers, and I thought, when did I mention that? Daniel's voice was quiet. What? When did I mention being interested in computers? Sarah's mind raced. You said something about kids at school having them. You said. I said that 2 years ago, Mom. I was 12. The words hung in the air between them. I was 12 years old when I mentioned that. I'm not interested in computers anymore. I haven't been for a long time. Sarah felt the ground shifting beneath her feet. But you mentioned photography. And you wanted to learn guitar. I gave up on photography last year. I never got around to guitar. Daniel's voice was still quiet, but there was something in it now. Something that sounded like exhaustion. You would know that if you'd been around. Daniel. This is a really nice laptop, Mom. It probably cost a lot of money. Money you worked really hard for. He looked at her finally, and Sarah's heart broke at the expression in his eyes. But I don't need a laptop. I don't need any of this. Then what do you need? Sarah heard her voice rising, panic setting in. Tell me what you want, honey. Tell me what I can give you. I don't want anything you can buy, Mom. Daniel's voice cracked. I just wanted you. I just wanted my mom to be there. To know me. To know what I'm actually interested in now, not 2 years ago. To talk to me about more than just schedules and homework. To be present for more than just one day a year. I'm trying, Sarah whispered, tears streaming down her face. I'm trying so hard. Everything I do is for you. I know. I know you work hard. I know you sacrifice for me. And I'm grateful, I really am. But Mom, I don't need you to work yourself to death. I don't need expensive gifts. I just need you. I'm here now. I took the day off. It's one day, Mom. One day out of 365. And it's not even really my birthday. Sarah felt like she'd been slapped. What? My birthday was last week. March 8th. Today is March 15th. The room spun. No, your birthday is March 15th. I know my own son's birthday was March 15th. We changed the date when I was little, remember? Because March 8th was the date of the accident, and you and Dad wanted me to have a happy birthday not associated with that. So we celebrated on March 15th instead. But Mom, I've been celebrating on March 8th for the past 3 years. Ever since I turned 12 and decided I wanted to reclaim my real birthday. Sarah's legs gave out. She sank onto the couch, her mind reeling. You've been celebrating on a different day, and I didn't know? I told you. I told you 3 years ago that I wanted to celebrate on my actual birthday. You said that was fine, that was a good idea. You were there for the first one, remember? We had pizza and watched movies. A vague memory surfaced. Daniel, younger, smaller, telling her something about birthdays and dates. Her, distracted and exhausted, barely listening, saying whatever seemed appropriate. Had that really been 3 years ago? But then the next year, you worked, Daniel continued, his voice trembling now. And the year after that. And this year. My actual birthday was last week, March 8th, and you worked a double shift that day. You came home at 11 at night and went straight to bed. Why didn't you remind me? Sarah was sobbing now. Why didn't you tell me it was your birthday? Because you were exhausted, Mom. You're always exhausted. And I didn't want to add to your burden. I didn't want you to feel bad about missing it. So you just let me miss it? For 3 years. What was I supposed to do? Daniel's own tears were falling now. Demand that you take time off work? Demand that you be there? You work so hard to provide for us, and I know we need the money, and I just accepted that this was how it had to be. Sarah looked at the laptop sitting between them, this expensive gift she'd worked herself nearly to death to afford. A gift her son didn't want or need. A gift that represented thousands of hours of missed moments, missed conversations, missed birthdays. I'm so sorry, she whispered. Daniel, I'm so sorry. I know you are. I know you love me. I've never doubted that. He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. But Mom, I'm 15 now. In 3 years, I'll graduate high school. In 3 years, I'll probably leave for college or get a job or move out. And then all this time we could have had together will be gone. Forever. 3 years, Sarah repeated numbly. How did time go so fast? I don't know. But it did. And Daniel's voice broke completely. I just wanted some of it with you. I don't care about being rich. I don't care about living in a nice place. I'd rather live in a tiny apartment and eat ramen every day if it meant I got to actually have a mom who was there. Tell me what to do, Sarah begged. Tell me how to fix this. I can't tell you that. You're the adult. You have to figure it out. Daniel stood up, leaving the laptop on the couch. I'm going to my room. There's homework I need to do. But the dinner, I made your favorite. I'm not really hungry. Maybe later. He walked away, and Sarah heard his bedroom door close with a soft click. Not a slam, Daniel never slammed doors. Just a quiet closing that somehow felt worse than any amount of anger. Sarah sat alone in her living room, staring at the expensive laptop, the spaghetti sauce simmering in the kitchen, the cake with 15 candles she'd planned to light. All of it meaningless. All of it too little, too late. She'd been so focused on providing, on giving Daniel a better life through material means, that she'd missed the most important thing, him. She'd been so busy working to give him everything that she'd given him nothing that actually mattered. How many moments had she missed? How many times had he needed her and she hadn't been there? How many times had he gone to bed disappointed, understanding but hurt? She'd thought she was being a good mother by sacrificing, by working herself to exhaustion. But what good was sacrifice if it meant sacrificing the relationship itself? Sarah didn't know how long she sat there. Minutes? Hours? The light outside faded from afternoon to evening. The sauce in the kitchen probably burned. She didn't care. Finally, she stood up. She walked to Daniel's door and knocked softly. Come in. Daniel was sitting at his desk, a textbook open in front of him, but clearly not reading it. He looked up when she entered, his eyes red and swollen. Sarah sat on the edge of his bed. I need to tell you something. Mom, if this is about how hard you work and how you do it all for me, I know. I already know that. No. Well, yes, but that's not what I need to say. Sarah took a deep breath. I've been a terrible mother. You haven't. Let me finish. Please. She waited until he nodded. I've been so focused on surviving, on providing for you financially, that I lost sight of what actually matters. I convinced myself that if I just worked hard enough, if I just saved enough money, if I just gave you nice things, that would make up for not being there. But I was wrong. I was so wrong. Daniel said nothing, just watched her with those eyes that looked too old for his 15 years. I missed your birthday. Your real birthday. For 3 years in a row. Sarah's voice cracked. What kind of mother doesn't even know when her son's birthday is? What kind of mother is so absent from her child's life that she doesn't know what he's interested in, who his friends are, what makes him happy or sad? You were working. Stop making excuses for me. The words came out sharper than she intended, and she softened her tone. Please, baby. Stop being so understanding, so patient, so mature about this. You're 15 years old. You shouldn't have to be the understanding one. You should be able to be angry with me. You should be able to demand more from me. I'm not angry, Daniel said quietly. I'm just sad. I miss you, Mom. Even though we live in the same apartment, I miss you. Those words broke something fundamental inside Sarah. She began to cry, really cry, the kind of deep sobs that came from a place of profound grief and regret. I'm sorry, she gasped out between sobs. I'm so sorry for everything I've missed. I'm sorry I wasn't there when you failed that math test. I'm sorry I didn't help you study. I'm sorry I missed your basketball games. You've had basketball games, haven't you? I don't even know. I'm sorry I don't know who your friends are anymore, what you do after school, what your dreams are. I'm sorry I've been so focused on survival that I forgot to actually live with you. Daniel moved from his desk chair to sit beside her on the bed. He didn't say anything, just sat there while she cried. I thought I was doing the right thing, Sarah continued. After the divorce, when your father left and stopped paying support, I panicked. I was so scared of losing our apartment, of not being able to feed you, of failing you completely. So I took the first job I could find, and then a second one, and I kept going. I kept pushing. I told myself it was temporary, that things would get better, that someday I'd be able to cut back and be there for you more. But that day never came. And I kept working more and more, and I kept missing more and more, and somewhere along the way I lost you. I lost my son. You didn't lose me, Daniel said softly. I'm right here. Are you? Sarah looked at him through her tears. Because when I look at you, I see a young man I barely know. When did you get so tall? When did your voice get so deep? When did you start looking so much like your father? I've been here, living in the same apartment, but I've missed watching you grow up. And I can't get that time back. It's gone forever. They sat in silence for a long moment. Then Daniel spoke, his own voice thick with emotion. Do you want to know what I wished for on my birthday? My real birthday last week. Tell me. I wished that you would quit one of your jobs. I didn't even wish for both, I know we need money. But just one. So you'd have some evenings at home, or some mornings where you weren't rushing out the door before I even woke up. I wish that we could have dinner together more than once a month. I wish that when I had a bad day, I could talk to you about it instead of handling it alone. He paused. I've been making those same wishes for 3 years now. They never come true. Sarah felt like her heart was being physically torn from her chest. What do you need from me, Daniel? What can I do to fix this? There has to be something. I need you to choose me, he said simply. Not money. Not providing. Not some theoretical better future. Me. Right now. While I'm still here. But the bills. We'll get paid somehow. Or they won't, and we'll figure it out. Mom, I know we're not rich. I know things are tight. But we don't need as much as you think we do. We could move to a smaller apartment. I could get a part-time job. We could make it work. You're 15. You shouldn't have to work. And you shouldn't have to kill yourself working 2 jobs. Daniel turned to face her fully. I'd rather have less stuff and more mom. Don't you understand that? I don't need new clothes or expensive gifts or even this apartment. I just need you. Sarah looked around Daniel's small room. It was neat and clean, decorated with posters of bands she didn't recognize and photos of friends she'd never met. There was a basketball trophy on his shelf. When had he won that? There were books she didn't know he was reading. A life she knew nothing about. Tell me about your life, she said suddenly. Tell me everything I've missed. Your friends, your interests, your dreams. Everything. Daniel looked surprised. Now. Right now. I want to know my son. Really know him. So Daniel talked. He told her about his best friends, Marcus and Tyler, and how they'd bonded over basketball tryouts. He told her about the girl he had a crush on, Jasmine, who sat in front of him in English class. He told her about how he'd stopped being interested in computers and photography because he discovered he loved writing instead, stories and poems that he wrote in notebooks he kept hidden under his bed because he was too shy to share them. He told her about the basketball team, how nervous he'd been during tryouts, how proud he'd been when he'd made it. He told her about the game where he'd scored the winning basket, a game she'd missed because she was working. He didn't say it accusingly, just matter-of-factly. He told her about struggling in math, but excelling in English and history. He told her about the teacher, Mr. Patterson, who'd encouraged his writing and suggested he enter a school poetry contest. He told her about winning 3rd place, another thing she hadn't known about. He told her about the moments he'd needed her. The day a girl had rejected him when he'd asked her to a school dance, and he'd come home to an empty apartment and cried alone in his room. The time he'd been bullied by older kids on the bus, and he'd had no one to talk to about it. The night he'd had a nightmare about the accident, the one on his real birthday that had killed his grandmother, and he'd woken up terrified with no mother to comfort him. Sarah listened to all of it, tears streaming down her face, her heart breaking with each story, each missed moment. This was her son. This wonderful, thoughtful, creative young man. And she'd barely known him. I'm so proud of you, she said when he finally stopped talking. 3rd place in a poetry contest? That's incredible. Can I read your poems? Daniel hesitated. They're not very good. I bet they're wonderful. Will you show me? Slowly, Daniel reached under his bed and pulled out a worn notebook. He handed it to Sarah like he was giving her something precious and fragile. Sarah opened it and began to read. The poems were raw and honest, full of teenage emotion and surprising insight. Some were about basketball and friendship. Some were about feeling alone. And several were about a mother who worked too hard and a son who missed her. One poem in particular made Sarah's breath catch. My mother's hands are rough and tired. From working jobs she never wanted. She gives me everything she has. Except the thing I need the most. Her time, her presence, her laughter. I'd trade it all, every single thing, for one more day of just us two. Before I grew up and she grew distant. Before providing became more important than being. I know she loves me, she tells me so. But love isn't just words or gifts or sacrifice. It's showing up. And I'm still waiting. Sarah closed the notebook carefully, unable to speak through her tears. Her son had been writing poetry about how much he missed her, and she hadn't even known he wrote poetry at all. Daniel, she finally managed. This is beautiful. And heartbreaking. And true. I didn't mean to make you feel bad. No, I need to feel bad. I need to understand what I've done. or rather, what I haven't done. Sarah set the notebook aside and took both of Daniel's hands in hers. I'm going to make a change. A real one. Tomorrow, I'm going to tell Tom that I need to cut back my hours at the diner. And I'm going to talk to Marcus about reducing my shifts at the grocery store. Mom, we need the money. We need each other more. You said it yourself. We can move to a smaller apartment if we have to. We can cut expenses. We'll figure it out. But I can't keep sacrificing our relationship for money. I can't keep missing your life. What if we can't make it work financially? Then we'll deal with that when it happens. But I have to try, Daniel. I have to try to be the mother you deserve, not just the provider. I've spent 5 years working myself to death, and for what? So we could have an apartment you're never in and I'm barely in? So we could afford food we don't eat together? What's the point of any of it if we don't have each other? Daniel's eyes filled with hope, but also caution. You've said things like this before, Mom. After that day we spent at the park. You said we'd do it more often, but we never did. He was right. She had made promises before. Empty promises made with good intentions but no follow-through. This time is different, Sarah said firmly. This time I understand what's at stake. I'm not just trying to spend more time with you, I'm trying to save our relationship before it's too late. Before you graduate and leave and we're strangers who happen to be related. I don't want that either, Daniel whispered. Then help me. Hold me accountable. If I start slipping back into old patterns, call me out. Don't just accept it and make excuses for me. I need you to be honest with me, even if it's hard. Okay, I can do that. Sarah pulled Daniel into a tight hug, and he hugged her back just as fiercely. They stayed like that for a long time, mother and son, holding on to each other like they were afraid to let go. I love you so much, Sarah said into his hair. More than anything in this world. And I'm going to do better. I promise you I'm going to do better. I love you too, Mom. When they finally pulled apart, Sarah wiped her eyes and stood up. Okay, new plan for tonight. We're going to heat up that spaghetti I made, which has probably burned by now, but we'll make it work, and we're going to have a proper birthday dinner. Even if it's a week late. Even if it's almost midnight. We're going to celebrate you, because you deserve to be celebrated. Can we watch a movie after? Daniel asked, a small smile appearing on his face. Like we used to? We can watch as many movies as you want. I don't have to work tomorrow morning. I already requested the day off. Really? Really? I'm going to start making changes now tonight. Not someday. Not when things get better. Now. They went to the kitchen together and discovered that the sauce had indeed burned slightly, but it was salvageable. They worked side by side, something they hadn't done in years, reheating the sauce and boiling fresh pasta. Sarah let Daniel tell her more stories while they cooked, about his classes, his teammates, his plans for the future. I want to study creative writing in college, he said. Maybe become a journalist or a novelist. I know it's not the most practical career, but... It's perfect, Sarah interrupted. If that's what you love, if that's what makes you happy, then it's perfect. And I'm going to support you however I can. They ate dinner at nearly 11 p.m., talking and laughing in a way they hadn't in years. Sarah brought out the cake and lit 15 candles, singing Happy Birthday off-key while Daniel grinned. He made a wish and blew them all out in one breath. What did you wish for? Sarah asked. I can't tell you or it won't come true. I think it might come true anyway, Sarah said softly. They watched 2 movies curled up on the couch together, and Sarah fought to stay awake even though exhaustion pulled at her. This mattered more than sleep. This moment, this time with her son, mattered more than anything. When Daniel's head began to nod against her shoulder, Sarah finally suggested they go to bed. It was past 2 a.m., later than either of them had stayed up in years. Thank you, Mom, Daniel said as he headed to his room. This was a really good birthday. Late, but good. We'll celebrate your next one on the right day, Sarah promised. March 8th. I'm marking it on every calendar I own. Okay. He paused at his doorway. I'm glad you're my mom, you know. Even with everything. I wouldn't want anyone else. Sarah's eyes filled with tears again. That's the nicest thing anyone has ever said to me. Good night, sweetheart. I love you. Love you too. After Daniel closed his door, Sarah sat alone in the living room for a few more minutes. The laptop she'd bought him sat on the coffee table, still in its box. Tomorrow, she'd return it and get the money back. They'd need it if she was going to cut back her hours. Or maybe she'd keep it and give it to him anyway. Not as a replacement for her presence, but as a tool he could actually use. For his writing, for his schoolwork. She'd ask him what he wanted. That was the key, she realized. Asking him. Listening to him. Being present enough to know what he actually needed rather than guessing based on memories that were years out of date. Sarah pulled out her phone and sent an email to Tom at the diner and another to Marcus at the grocery store. She told them both that she needed to reduce her hours significantly, effective immediately. She'd work it out with them, find a schedule that allowed her to actually be home sometimes. If it meant less money, so be it. They'd figure it out. She sent the emails before she could second-guess herself, before fear and practical concerns could make her change her mind. Then she went to bed, and for the first time in years, she slept peacefully. The next morning, Sarah woke up at her normal 4:30 a.m. from pure habit, even though she didn't have to be at work. She lay in bed for a moment, disoriented, before remembering everything that had happened the night before. She got up and made breakfast, scrambled eggs and toast, just like Daniel had made for her that Saturday months ago. When Daniel emerged from his room at 7 a.m., looking surprised to see her in the kitchen, Sarah had everything ready. "Good morning," she said, smiling. "Hungry?" "You're here," Daniel said, as if he couldn't quite believe it. "I'm here. And I'm going to be here a lot more often from now on." They ate breakfast together, and Sarah asked Daniel about his day ahead. He had a math test, of course he did, and she hadn't known about it, and a basketball practice after school. "Can I come watch your practice?" Sarah asked. Daniel's face lit up. "Really? You want to?" "I'd love to. I've never seen you play basketball. I want to see what you can do." "Okay. Yeah, that would be really cool, Mom." After Daniel left for school, Sarah spent the morning responding to emails from Tom and Marcus. Tom was understanding, as she'd expected. Marcus was less so, but ultimately agreed to a reduced schedule. Between the two jobs, she'd still be working full-time hours, but they'd be more regular hours. Morning shifts at the diner ending at 2 p.m., giving her afternoons and evenings at home. It would mean significantly less money. Sarah did the calculations and felt her stomach drop. They'd have to move. There was no way around it. The rent on their current apartment was too high for what she'd be making. But Daniel had said he didn't care about the apartment. And Sarah had to trust that he'd mend it. She spent the afternoon looking at cheaper apartments online. There were several options in less desirable neighborhoods, smaller but affordable. She bookmarked a few to show Daniel later. At 3:30 p.m., Sarah took the bus to Daniel's school and found the gymnasium where basketball practice was held. She slipped into the bleachers quietly, not wanting to distract anyone. And there was Daniel, on the court with his team, dribbling and passing and shooting. He was good, really good. Graceful and confident in a way she'd never seen him be. When he made a three-point shot, his teammates high-fived him and the coach called out encouragement. Sarah's heart swelled with pride. This was her son. This talented, athletic, wonderful young man. And she'd never seen this side of him before. Practice ended at 5 p.m. Daniel grabbed his bag and was heading toward the locker room when he spotted Sarah in the bleachers. His entire face transformed with surprise and joy. "Mom, you came. I told you I would." Sarah climbed down from the bleachers and met him at the edge of the court. "Daniel, you were amazing. I had no idea you were that good. It's just practice. Don't diminish it. You're really talented." She hesitated, then asked, "When's your next game?" "Friday night. 7 o'clock. I'll be there. Front row. And I'll actually know what's happening this time instead of just cheering randomly." Daniel laughed, and the sound filled Sarah with more happiness than she'd felt in years. They took the bus home together, Daniel chattering excitedly about practice, about the game on Friday, about his teammates. Sarah listened to every word, committing it all to memory. At home, Sarah made dinner, nothing fancy, just grilled cheese and tomato soup, and they ate together at the kitchen table. Afterward, Daniel did his homework while Sarah sat nearby, reading a book she'd been trying to finish for 6 months. They didn't talk much, but they were together, sharing the same space, and that was enough. That night, before bed, Sarah knocked on Daniel's door again. Hey, honey, I wanted to show you something. She pulled up the apartment listings on her phone and showed him. I did the math with my new reduced schedule. We're going to have to move to something smaller and cheaper. I wanted you to see the options and have a say in where we go. Daniel looked through the listings, his expression thoughtful. These are all in different neighborhoods. I'd have to change schools. Sarah's heart sank. She hadn't thought of that. We could try to find something in this district. No, it's okay, Daniel interrupted. A fresh start might be good. And honestly, Mom, as long as you're actually there, I don't care where we live. Are you sure? I'm sure. We could live in a cardboard box, and it would be fine as long as you were in the cardboard box with me. Sarah laughed through the tears that seemed to be her constant companion lately. I promise we'll do better than a cardboard box. But thank you for being so understanding. Thank you for making changes, Daniel countered. For choosing me. The next few months were a whirlwind of adjustments. Sarah and Daniel moved to a smaller two-bedroom apartment in a less expensive neighborhood. It was older, less nice, but it was clean and safe and affordable. Daniel transferred to a new school and made new friends surprisingly quickly. Sarah worked her reduced schedule and came home every afternoon by 3 p.m. She went to every single one of Daniel's basketball games, cheering louder than any other parent. She helped him with his homework, even the subjects she struggled with, they figured it out together. She read his poetry and encouraged his writing, and she beamed with pride when he won first place in a regional writing contest. They had dinner together every single night. They watched movies on weekends. They really talked about everything and nothing. Sarah learned about her son's life, his thoughts, his dreams, his fears. And slowly, painfully, she began to rebuild the relationship she'd nearly destroyed. Money was tight, tighter than it had ever been. Some months, they barely made rent. They ate a lot of rice and beans. Sarah sold the laptop she'd bought Daniel and used the money for groceries. They didn't have extra for movies or restaurants or new clothes. But they had each other. They had time together. They had conversations and laughter and connection. One evening in late September, 6 months after the missed birthday, Sarah and Daniel were making dinner together when he turned to her suddenly. Mom, I need to tell you something. Sarah's heart clenched. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. I want you to know that this has been the best 6 months of my life. Really? Sarah was surprised. But we have so much less now. We're barely scraping by. I know. And I don't care. Daniel set down the knife he'd been using to chop vegetables. We're poor, Mom. Like, really poor. But I've never been happier. Because I have you. Finally, after all these years, I actually have my mom back. Sarah had to sit down, her legs suddenly weak. I can't believe that's true. I've failed you in so many ways. You didn't fail me. You did your best in an impossible situation. But Mom, don't you see? Your best doesn't have to be killing yourself working. Your best is being here. Being present. Knowing me. That's all I ever wanted. I wasted so much time, Sarah said softly. I worked so hard to give you things you didn't need, and in the process, I didn't give you the one thing you did need, me. But you're here now. That's what matters. Sarah looked at her son, 15 years old, nearly as tall as she was now, growing into a remarkable young man. I missed so much. Your childhood, your birthdays, your achievements. I can't get that time back. No, Daniel agreed. You can't. But Mom, I still have 3 more years before I graduate. 3 years where you can be there. 3 years of birthdays and games and just regular dinners together. That's a lot of time if we use it right. When did you get so wise? I had to grow up fast, remember? Daniel smiled to show he was joking, but there was truth in it. But seriously, Mom, stop beating yourself up about the past. I've forgiven you. I'm just happy you figured it out before it was too late. Sarah pulled Daniel into a hug. I love you so much. Thank you for being patient with me. Thank you for not giving up on us. I love you too. And I could never give up on you. You're my mom. They finished making dinner together, and as they sat down to eat their simple meal of pasta and vegetables, Sarah felt a contentment she hadn't experienced in years. Maybe ever. Yes, They had less money. Yes, their apartment was smaller. Yes, things were financially harder than they'd ever been. But they had something infinitely more valuable. They had time. They had presence. They had each other. And Sarah had learned the most important lesson of her life, that love isn't measured in dollars or sacrifices or gifts. Love is measured in moments. In showing up. In being there. She'd spent years working herself to exhaustion trying to give Daniel a good life, not realizing that she was the good life he wanted. Not things she could buy. Not security she could provide. Just her. Her time, her attention, her presence. It had taken missing 3 birthdays in a row and nearly losing her relationship with her son completely for Sarah to understand that simple truth. But she understood it now. And she'd never forget it again. Later that night, after Daniel had gone to bed, Sarah sat at the kitchen table with a pen and paper. March 8th was still 5 months away, Daniel's real 16th birthday. She was already planning it. Not gifts. Not expensive celebrations. Just a full day together, doing whatever Daniel wanted. Maybe they'd go to that park they'd visited that one Saturday. Maybe they'd stay home and watch movies. Maybe they'd do nothing at all except exist in the same space, talking and laughing. It didn't matter what they did. What mattered was that she'd be there. Fully present. Not distracted by work or exhaustion or worries about money. She'd be there for him. Finally, truly, completely there. And that, Sarah had learned, was the only gift that really mattered. Epilogue. 3 years later, Sarah stood in the parking lot of Daniel's high school, watching as her son, now a young man of 18, walked across the stage to receive his diploma. She was crying, of course. She seemed to cry at everything these days, but these were happy tears. Daniel had been accepted to 3 universities, all offering scholarships for his writing. He decided on a school 2 hours away, close enough to visit, far enough to be independent. He was excited, nervous, ready to start the next chapter of his life. And Sarah was ready to let him go, because she knew that their relationship was solid now. They'd built something strong over the past 3 years, something that could withstand distance and change. She thought back to that awful night when Daniel had revealed she'd missed his birthday for the 3rd year in a row. The night she'd realized she'd been so busy providing for her son that she'd forgotten to be his mother. If she could go back and change things, she would. She'd take back all those missed moments, all those birthdays she'd been too exhausted to celebrate properly, all those times Daniel had needed her and she hadn't been there. But she couldn't change the past. All she could do was learn from it and make sure she didn't waste the present. These past 3 years had been the best of Sarah's life, even though they'd been the poorest. She'd been there for every birthday, every basketball game, every school event. She'd read every poem Daniel wrote. She'd celebrated every achievement. She'd comforted him through every disappointment. She'd been present. Finally, truly present. And watching him walk across that stage now, this confident young man with a bright future ahead of him, Sarah knew she'd made the right choice. She'd chosen time over money. Presence over presents. Her son over everything else. It had been worth it. Every sacrifice, every financial struggle, every moment of uncertainty, it had all been worth it to have these 3 years of really knowing her son, of being his mom instead of just someone who worked to provide for him. After the ceremony, Daniel found her in the crowd and pulled her into a tight hug. "We did it, Mom. You did it, sweetheart. I'm so proud of you. I couldn't have done it without you. These past 3 years, having you actually there, supporting me, believing in me, that's what got me through." Sarah held him tight, this boy who'd had to become a man too fast, who'd been too patient and too understanding for too long, who'd waited years for his mother to wake up and see what really mattered. "Thank you for not giving up on me," she whispered. "Thank you for waiting for me to figure it out. Always, Mom. Always." As they walked to the car together, Daniel's arm around her shoulders, Sarah felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. She'd almost lost this. She'd almost sacrificed her relationship with her son on the altar of financial security and material provision. But she'd learned in time. She'd changed before it was too late. And now, watching her son head off into the world, She knew that the time they'd spent together these past 3 years was the greatest gift she could have given him. Not money, not things, not sacrifices that left her too exhausted to be present. Just her time, her attention, her love, demonstrated not through work and gifts, but through showing up, day after day, choosing him, being there. That was the gift that truly mattered. That was the gift he'd always needed. And finally, it was the gift she'd learned to give.